Hi, this is Rose Smith, and this is my presentation on understanding students with ADHD. So the first question is, how many students with ADHD are currently being served in the U.S.? So 7% of children are identified with having ADHD, and about 77% or 3 out of 4 of those receive treatment. 30% of those receive medication alone. 15% receive behavioral treatment alone, and then 32% of them receive both types of treatment. Around 23% of these children that have ADHD receive neither treatment options, and then 9 out of 10 receive school support for ADHD, like strategies and stuff, and special education. 6 out of 10 receive parent-delivered behavior therapy. So how has the number of students identified increased in recent years? So it has been found that between the ages of 4 and 17 that there has been an increase of 6.1% in 97-98 to 10.2% in 2015-2016 of children identified with ADHD. This has suggested their rates have increased about 30% since 1990. Some parents believe this increase, parents appear to consider ADHD a diagnosis and treatment as a means to improve their child's academic achievements, and so that is one reason they think there's an increase, because parents are more willing to accept it. And then also has an increase that boys, or it's not really increased, but boys are more likely to experience ADHD than girls. They're about 3 times more likely. So for the next slide, what are some of the reported reasons for increase? So one I had kind of mentioned before, parents have become more acceptable of using medications and hoping that their their children will do better in their academics. So one of the leading factors is the increase in physicians' and parents' attitude towards diagnosing ADHD. Another thing was the healthcare options. The biggest jump was in minority groups, and that was suggested that there was a better access to health insurance and mental health treatments because of the Affordable Care Act. And there's also the concern of overdiagnosing, which might be an increase. This was found after research was done that there's actually no support saying this, but there are in some places where there's a bunch of behavioral issues that are said to be ADHD, but instead they are actually more social and environmental factors, such as having an overcrowded room, and these are more like more poverty-stricken schools where there is crowded rooms. And then also another one is the classification of the condition. Girls have actually been on the rise. They are still under what the boys have been diagnosed with ADHD, but they believe this is because of the classification of the condition being so instead of, it's always just been hyperactive, and now they have the inattention with it, which is what girls mostly fall under. And this has led to more girls since they're coming into that, so that could be an increase. That is said to be one of the reasons there has been an increase in ADHD. So the next one, what are the specific behaviors and characteristics of students with ADHD? So there's 2 main categories that I found. There's poor sustained attention and hyperactivity impulsive, which these were divided into 3 subtypes by the American Psychiatric Association. These are predominantly attentive, predominantly hyper-impulsive, and then combined of those 2. So characteristics of those with the predominantly inattentive would be like trouble following or attending to details, indirections, sustained attention for duration of a task at hand, misplacing needed items. They will often fail to give close attention to details, make careless mistakes, and avoid or dislike tasks requiring sustained mental effort. Those with hyperactivity, they will commonly appear like fidgety, difficulty staying seated, or playing quietly, and act as if driven by a motor. And then children displaying impulsivity often have difficult participating in tasks that require taking turns, waiting their turn, be getting called on before, like they will answer before getting called on, or they will try to finish somebody else's sentence. Combined is just with those different characteristics showing up for one student. For somebody to be diagnosed for this ADHD, you have to be diagnosed before you're 12, have it persistent for 6 months, and it has to be at a degree that's actually interfering constantly with your work. It has to show up in at least 2 settings, and it's not attributable to another disability. So the next question is, in what ways do these characteristics make it difficult for students to learn and participate in school? So, majority of students with ADHD have typical intelligence, so they have IQs as regular students, but some do have problems achieving academically. They have lower academic achievement, lower point grade average, and higher retention rates than average students. They can have problems with reading achievement, so they have lower vocab development, and working memory challenges leads to problems with their reading achievement. And then the strongest predictors of academic achievement are students with ADHD with ability to plan ahead and the ability to organize time and materials, which is something that they have the ability to do. So some of the characteristics that would lead to these things are like the inability to listen directions, like impulsivity, finishing like people's sentences, speaking without turn. There's short-term memory, which leads to loss of academic or loss of information. There's poor note-taking, and then there's forethought leading to the inability to learn from mistakes, which can lead to these lower grades and reading achievements. Children with ADHD commonly have difficulty regulating positive and negative emotions. They tend to have like mood swings. This can affect coursework and revisions for examinations. And then there's pragmatic language. This is the use of communication in social contexts, such as engaging in conversations, using appropriate gestures, and making narrative comments. Students with ADHD usually have impairs in pragmatic language and are highly related to impairments in social skills, leaving them out of the groups, and their peers only see them as superficial friends, and so they don't actually become part of a group. So do all students with ADHD demonstrate the same characteristics or degree of behavior? All students do not exhibit the same characteristics or degree of behavior. As said before, the characteristics can stem from different subtypes of ADHD. So some can be showing inattentive characteristics, so they might not be able to listen to directions, not finishing a task before on time. Others can show characteristics of hyperactive impulsive, so they could be fidgety, moving out of their seat, interrupting sentences, or answering before their turn, or it can be a combination of both of those. So those can be exhibiting of different characteristics. And then there are different degrees of behavior. Some students do not have to be in a special education or have an IEP. They can perform adequately without school, but there are some who do need their special education, and there are some that also need special accommodations but not fully into special education. And so some of these that can use special accommodations would be in forms of longer time to complete assignments or tests, or having test breaks. And so the next question, according to IDEA, under what category are students with ADHD identified? ADHD is classified by IDEA in a subcategory of other health impairments. And students with other health impairments has limited strength, vitality, or alertness, including a heightened alertness to environment stimuli, resulting in limited alertness with respect to the education environment. Students with ADHD might also be classified as being treated under other categories, which could include learning disabilities, emotional or behavioral disabilities, and intellectual disabilities. As emotional, they can have this mood swings, behavioral mood swings too, and then they might be under the typical intellect of their peers. And so ADHD is not actually specifically defined by IDEA, so since that is not specifically defined, professionals use the definition offered by the American Psychiatric Association, which focuses on the two domains, inattentive and hyperactivity, impulsivity, which were part of the subtypes I had talked about earlier. Alright, so the last thing was the effective class-wide interventions. So one way to do this is classroom modifications. This can be the modifications in aspects of the classroom environment. Students might not be able to function in overcrowded rooms or certain settings, so you could, for the students, you could move seating arrangements, classroom furniture, and then light and auditory features could be moved around so it does not affect the student with ADHD, and so they can succeed in general education classrooms. And then there's also curriculum augmentations, which involves expanding and adding to the general curriculum to teach students self-regulation strategies that enable them to learn more effectively. This could be like to augment organizational and goal-setting skills, as these are hard for students with ADHD to perform. Being able to be organized allows for the student to accomplish their work, do their homework. It can improve their study habits. And to have an effective studying habits, you need to have goals that they need to attain. So goals can be time, or the amount of time to spend studying each day, or getting a certain score on a quiz or homework assignment. Students with ADHD who set goals perform more effectively, and these two skills, organization and goal setting, go hand in hand to promote their outcomes for students, or better outcomes for students. So then there's the airless learning strategy. This can be used mostly in elementary and middle school students. It's an instructional strategy, minimizing mistakes students can make when learning a new task. Instead of having a trial and error where the student runs risk of learning something that is wrong and then having to relearn, this allows for the teacher to present a discriminative stimuli to the student and arrange the delivery of prompts in such a way that the student can only give the correct response or only have a few incorrect responses. So this could be like an example of asking a student for the time. If they don't get it right, then you could point to the clock as a prompt, for them to get the desired answers. Prompts can be verbal, physical, or visual. For this to be effective, the teacher first has to decide or figure out what the student can do without prompts, and then go from there. And then I found also video self-modeling for like secondary and transition students. This is a proven technology-based approach that can be useful for promoting outcomes such as goal setting and self-management for students with ADHD. This allows the student to watch videos of themselves performing a skill correctly. This is a simple strategy and has used as minimal steps to get to it. You video them, let them watch it, and have them have the goal to get to their good skill, and it uses little technology. And then line references. Alright. That's it.